Hey everyone, I'm your host Cadence, and welcome back to another episode of Project Honesty. This is a podcast by a young adult, for young adults, to acquire unfiltered advice and bold opinions, as well as take deep dives into the issues shaping our world. We'll challenge ideas, explore new perspectives, and have fun while navigating the ups and downs of life. This is Project Honesty, where truth meets curiosity and every conversation matters. If you haven't already, go check out last week's episode called The Current Report, National and International News That Matters to You. This episode just explores the latest national and international developments, and join us as we break down the key events shaping our world. That is available on Spotify and YouTube, like always. And before I get into today's episode, I just want to say something on here that has been brought to my attention in the last couple of days. In light of Mental Health Awareness Month, I just want to bring up the fact that telling people to kill themselves through social media isn't the best medium for that, but at the same time, you shouldn't be telling anybody to kill themselves because you never know what people are going through. And that was just brought to my attention after somebody had some very strong opinions to express about the podcast, and they're fully entitled to that. But I just wanted to bring that to the attention. Telling people to kill themselves is not ethical, it is not right, and it kind of makes you a terrible person. So yeah, don't tell people to kill themselves, especially through social media. Moving on to today's episode, we're going to be talking about working teens. We're going to be talking about how youth in Canada are finding jobs, the struggles of the competitive job sector, specifically the part-time job sector, kind of go over some numbers surrounding youth unemployment and employment rates. And then we're also going to talk about at the end how unemployment creates anxiety amongst youth, especially considering the economic situation in Canada right now, as well as that having a job can create anxiety and just kind of things like that. So I want to start with a general overview of numbers from Stats Canada about youth employment. Youth employment rates for youth aged 15 to 24 grew by 1.5 percentage points, which is about 40,000 people between March and April of 2024. And this is the most recent data possible that I could get my hands on. This has been one of the biggest increases in youth employment since December of 2022. In April specifically, the most employment increase was by men, and comparing the data from 2024 to the 2023 census data, youth employment fell by about 3.7 percentage points between 2024 and 2023. Unemployment, there has been a rise in youth unemployment between March and April of 2024 as it grew 2.9 percentage points, totaling the youth unemployment percentage to 12.8%. Excluding the pandemic years of 2020 and 2021, this has been the highest unemployment rate we've seen in youth since July of 2016. And we'll see why that's a problem kind of later on with more of the conversations around youth anxiety when it comes to being unemployed. But it should be concerning that level of unemployment is the lowest it's been since 2016. The highest, since 2016. That is a cause for an alarm bell to go off. And overall, consistently, year by year, unemployment steadily has increased amongst both men and women, with men being 13.0% and women at 12.6%. So how are Canadian youth, like myself, finding work? There is a lot of government initiatives. Now, with these, I don't know how to describe this, but they seem good and they appear good, and for the majority of the time they are good, but at the same time they're very overrun, and there's too many applicants for the little amount of spots for jobs like that. But when I think of government initiatives that have been common to me when thinking of Canadian youth in the part-time job sector or summer job sector, there's a lot of summer jobs in tourism. An example of this is Parks Canada. I know that we have a lot of volunteer firefighters that are in high school. There are also programs that support youth employment. So there's the Youth Employment and Skills Strategy, or the YES program, and that's funded by the federal government under the Employment and Social Development Canada Act. section. And then at the provincial level, there is different funding and programs that are specific to those provinces with different budget allocations for those specific programs. I know here in Alberta, we have a couple like government initiatives with that. I don't specifically know their names, but every province kind of has their unique way of approaching youth employment, but as a federal umbrella, we're able to kind of cover that with the YES program that's funded. There's also a lot of job fairs. I know in my city, we have a job fair every year for youth specifically, and these are kind of companies coming together at big convention centers, offering youth on-spot interviews and employment applications. Those things, again, with the problem that will be reoccurring throughout this episode, is the fact that there are so many youth looking for work, but not enough spots. There's also the common online part of finding jobs. That's how I found my job. I actually found my job through a combination of people, but there's like things like Indeed, Hire Me, and job postings from independent companies on social media, like on Facebook and Instagram. Indeed, from someone who's personally used Indeed, I hate it because some of the job postings are like false or just really weird, or even employers just don't get back to you at all because it's messed up in that system. But at the same time, Indeed seems to be one of the most reliable sources for youth seeking out part-time opportunities. And then some of the other strategies to finding work is kind of word of mouth. Lucky people nowadays have family members or friends that can give them a word of mouth recommendation for a job that will get them hired. And that's the unfortunate game a lot of youth are stuck in. If you're not getting recommended by a friend or family, it makes your job search a lot harder. And that's the unfortunate game that's happening right now in the part-time sector. And so why is getting a part-time job so hard right now, specifically for Canadian youth? As we know, youth unemployment is so high. And then there's also too many applicants for too few jobs. So I'm going to use Toronto and Vancouver as an example. In 2024, 1 in 3 part-time jobs in urban areas like Toronto or Vancouver received over 100 applications. So it's almost like fishing. Like there's a bait thrown out and there's 100 fish at the one bait. And only one person gets it successfully. StatsCan actually reported that over 180,000 students actively sought work last summer, and only 112,000 of those found jobs through government programs and market placements. So again, it's too little of a pool for the amount of people that are in. There's also minimum experience requirements, and they're increasing. A 2023 report from Indeed Canada showed that 48% of part-time job listings now require 6+ months of prior experience, and that's up 29 percentage points from 2019. You see now in the news even people with master's degrees not being able to get a job, And I know from personal experience being on the Indeed rabbit hole that you'll see a part-time job. You'll go, oh my gosh, this looks so great. And then it goes, you need 2 years of prior sales experience and this. My question to them is, well, if you're not going to even give youth a chance to gain any work experience, how do you expect young people to get work experience at all? It's very frustrating as a youth to see that and go, well, who you're kind of betting on who is taking a chance on me, right? Who is going to take the time to hire me and give me that work experience that I need so that after this job, I can go out and do other things. That is a really, really hard thing that a lot of youth are facing right now. And that at one point I also faced. There also is a lot of automation now in stores. And so this automation of customer service roles is shrinking entry-level jobs. So as of 2025, self-checkout stations have reduced cashier roles in large chains specifically, like corporate chains, by 30% compared to 2018. So there goes 30% of entry-level customer service roles that used to be filled by people that now are automated. chains like McDonald's and Tim Hortons are investing in kiosks, which cut back on the hourly hires up to 25% in some locations. I know that there's a Tim Hortons that I've been to once that you don't even talk to anyone to order, you just do it on a screen. And that also, I guess that happens at McDonald's too, but that's been forever. And it's crazy that used to be a person doing that, and now it's a machine. And so that is another big factor that I don't see talked about a lot, is the fact that automation is reducing these jobs. And another big, really frustrating problem is that more adults are taking, quote, youth jobs. So according to an economics report from the Royal Bank of Canada, over 40% of these part-time jobs in 2024 were held by workers that were aged 25 to 54. I remember even being really, really young, and that if you would go to a Tim Hortons or the grocery store, you would see teenagers working there. But now you see older adults, or even just new adults, like people in their 20s, filling those roles. And it's unfortunate because they shouldn't have to work those roles, but at the same time, it is frustrating as a youth seeing those roles taken by people who probably have more job experience than you. That increase means that youth are being pushed out of the jobs that we used to dominate. There's also the wage disadvantage for being a youth. In Alberta and Ontario specifically, the student minimum wage ranges from $13 to $15 an hour, while regular minimum wage for someone who is over 18 is closer to $16 or $17 on average. It feels so unfair as a youth to get paid $13 an hour when the coworker doing the exact same job as me makes I think 15, and they get away with this because you technically don't have to pay a minor minimum wage until they're 18, and that's when they're not a minor. And it's really, really frustrating with that, because even if you have a job, you're not making enough. And there are kids out there that are providing for their families and are not making enough money, and trying to balance that job with school really puts them on edge. And a lot of the times, employers see less return on training investment for youth, and then therefore opt for older workers who can work year-round. A lot of teenagers can only work summer jobs, and if they're working through school, like I am, you're working really late nights. You're only limited hours to nights during the daytime. You can work a couple times on the weekend. There are literal limits on how much you can work. And so when the employer goes, okay, here's this 25-year-old who can work from morning till night 5 days a week, or here's this teenager that can work nights 3 days a week and weekends, there's a clear discrepancy between that. And that connects to the fact that 60% of high school students, and I even think that number is more, could only work less than 15 hours a week due to school obligations, sports, family stuff. I know that at one point in the last couple of months, there was a time where I didn't see my mom for a week, and we live in the same house, just because I was going back and forth between extracurricular and work. And that is the reality for a lot of youth, especially in sports. I know I have a lot of friends in rugby right now that are like, how the hell am I going to balance a job on top of this? Again, employers want at least 20 plus hours a week. That includes really late nights and weekends. And sometimes when you're a kid who, say my friends who play rugby, who have tournaments on the weekend, you can't meet that expectation. Now I want to talk about how unemployment and job scarcity causes anxiety amongst youth. So number one, there's this threat to identity and self-worth. So many young people find a model from their parents. And our parents, I know that mine do, say, oh, I got a job and I did this and this and this. So many young people equate having a job with being capable, independent, or valuable to society. And we're kind of fed that message for so long that if you don't have a job by 16, you feel useless because you've been told for years and years and years, find a job, find a job, find a job. Well, the reality of that is it's so hard to do that statistically that that is almost not possible for a lot of people. And when these jobs are scarce, it's really easy to internalize that rejection and say that you're not good enough. Number 2 is the financial pressure, and that can lead to mental pressure. So without this little income, youth may struggle to pay for transportation, school supplies, clothes, or even food. Again, a lot of youth, you'd be surprised, are paying their way through life themselves. People with not great home lives are relying on this. And when they don't have that, they're done. They don't have those resources because schools are not great at doing that. And that has nothing to do with schools specifically. That has to do with the education systems. But sometimes that income is a lifeline. And in Canada, over 35% of youth aged 16 to 24 said that financial stress directly affects their mental health. And so this pressure can lead to chronic anxiety, especially those who are supporting themselves and their family. There's also a fear of falling behind. So when you're seeing your peers succeed while you're unemployed, it can trigger that comparison anxiety and start feelings of failure. And youth, like myself, often worry that they'll never catch up, especially when they're told that early job experience is essential for future success. Then there's also uncertainty about that future. Youth unemployment creates long-term anxiety, which makes the future feel unstable because not having an income is terrible, especially in this economy. Even for youth, it's expensive, and especially those whose parents are having a hard time right now. And that is a lot of people, especially we're basically heading into a recession, to be quite honest. And so it's getting harder and harder for families, and kids are having to bear the weight of that financial stress. And without this work, it's harder to imagine that path forward, and it just causes more stress about their purpose and direction in life. A survey done by the Canadian Mental Health Association, it found that 41% of unemployed youth have experienced persistent worry about their future. There also, again, lastly, is a lot of isolation and shame. So not having a job can make youth withdraw socially, and especially if friends are employed. Because it is a social thing to have a little bit of money, to be able to go, oh, hey guys, we're going to go get ice cream, or we're going to go do this or that. And not having that employment like some youth have can be isolating. And so this isolation can worsen symptoms of that social anxiety and depression, kind of creating this feedback loop. And many feel the shame asking their parents for money. I know that I've been there a lot, and I still am there a lot. I hate asking for money because it reinforces the sense of dependency or failure. And especially this affects kids who are brought up to be solely independent, feeling that even slight sense of dependency on your parents for especially financial things, it hurts. And a lot of people may be thinking to themselves, well, parents are supposed to provide for you. But when it gets to a certain point, you're going, oh my God, I can't keep doing this. And so it hurts you internally. But overall, anybody who's listening to this who's a youth that's also unemployed, just know that there are others facing that exact same challenge. And you are not alone. And that specifically is not a personal failure. That does not reflect your worth or your value in any way. It truly reflects the failing systems that we have set up right now for youth that aren't supporting you. And supporting me, I guess I should say too, because I'm a youth. But you're not alone in that want to be financially independent. I know this was a little bit of a shorter episode, but I'm doing 2 in 1. Sorry for the weird posting schedule. Life has been a little hectic. But thank you so much for listening to another episode of Project Honesty. You can check us out on our social medias. Our Instagram is project_honesty24. Our TikTok is project.honesty. Our website is linked in our Instagram and YouTube bio, and we're available for listening on Spotify and YouTube. If you enjoy listening to Project Honesty, share us with friends and family, and you can direct them to the Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, website, or TikTok to help them learn more. Subscribe, follow, and click the bell icon for updates when I post. And remember, the more listeners, the bigger the family.